Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to our spring position previews. It is appropriate. The second of our position previews behind quarterback is what Sark calls the second most important position in his offense behind quarterback, which is tight ends. We'll get to that in just a second. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by the estimable Gerry Hamilton, and of course, the newest member of the On Texas Football family, my man Jeff Howe. Shout out to our friends over at Tackle Addict. They are the sponsors of our position preview today, and we'll get to a message from Tackle Addict here in just a second. But gentlemen, let's talk about tight ends for a second here, because you may be talking about the most inexperienced position on the 40 acres on either side of the ball. They don't even return a target in the tight end room. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, but maybe not the type of funny that Longhorn fans want to laugh at. It's I mean, I got faith in Sark. There's no doubt about it. They got a lot of talent in that tight end room, but it is young, inexperienced, unproven talent.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we all know Jordan Washington is extremely talented. How talented is he? I mean, some people saw him in the spring game last year. Jeff Banks said at an August practice, a budding star. That's a strong statement for a guy that didn't play and who took a red shirt. So I think we know that Jordan Washington has a ton of talent and will be the number one guy this spring. But again, he's never caught a pass in live action in a game, Rod and Jeff. But I think the interesting thing will be about this tight end room is one of the key pieces, what we're going to get to, is not on campus yet. And I'm not even talking about the portal. I'm talking about Nick Townsen, who's running track in high school right now.
Yeah, when you look at the tight end room right now, it's not all that different than where this position was in 2022, if you think about it, because you lost Jared Wiley to the portal. Cade Brewer moved on, was out of eligibility. Jatavian Sanders didn't catch a pass. He was playing special teams as a true freshman. I think Juan Davis had like one catch for -1 yard, and we didn't really know what Texas had with Gunnar Helm at that point. So kind of similar room. Talented guys. Gerry, you mentioned I won't steal your thunder, the guy you're going to talk about here in a minute that's not on campus right now, but I love Jordan Washington's potential. You look at a guy that has all the measurables, got the basketball background, incredible athlete. He's probably the next in line to be an NFL guy out of this program at tight end. After that, it's a lot of, you just don't know what you got. Spencer Shannon's going to be the inline guy. How much can you realistically expect from him, though? Rod, we've talked about it on Football Theory and elsewhere. This might be a year where we see the return of the 6-0 line package if you want to have an inline tight end. So it's going to be one of those deals. Hey, does it benefit you more to have an extra O lineman on the field, or does it benefit you more to have Spencer Shannon on the field? I think spring ball is going to determine that. Gerry, before we get to, again, the guy you're going to talk about, I do wonder if the staff knew that Amari Niblack was going to move on when he did. I wonder if they would have maybe tried to make it work with Max Clare. I know that's revisionist history, but I just go back and wonder if they knew Amari Niblack was leaving, maybe they would have handled tight end differently in the portal in the winter window, or there's a possibility they would have been looking spring portal window regardless.
Yeah, I think so. And look, Rod, I lead you in this. I think Texas absolutely wants a tight end out of the portal in the spring. Because, I mean, if you think about it, Jordan Washington's going to be your starter. Like you said, there's no targets coming back. There's nobody Jordan Washington hasn't blocked anybody in the game. His first action is going to be against Ohio State. I mean, that is welcome to it, right? I mean, you're going to be playing physical game at Ohio State, and they're going to be throwing things at you even if they don't know your name. Then you have Spencer Shannon. Then you have Will Randall. You have Emery Winston, who's an early enrollee, who's more in the Juan Davis mold long-term, I think, than an inline tight end and an all-around tight end. Obviously, so, Rod, there's the need for a tight end in the portal before we get to Nick Townsen, who's a tremendous prospect who won't be here until June.
Yeah, those other guys, that other guy, whoever's going to be, getting the most playing time in their 12 personnel set, one back, two tight ends, opposite of Jordan Washington. It could just be a guy who's a plus blocker. That's what Juan Davis was. I mean, that's what made the difference between he and Amari Niblack was that, he ended up being a plus blocker. They needed that because if you go look at just kind of the analytics, Gunnar Helm, he was a good blocker actually in the passing game. In the run game, though, he was not necessarily a good blocker in the run game, and neither was Amari Knobloch. So you needed somebody. Juan Davis was that guy to balance it out. So I don't know if exactly what kind of blocker Spencer Shannon is. I mean, if he's a plus blocker now, like you said, Jeff, a lot will be determined this spring. And I agree with you, Gerry. I wouldn't take a chance. I probably would bring another guy in via the portal anyway. I would already have that plan no matter what happens in the spring. That can be just kind of a luxury. I would bring in someone because, man, there's so much experience there. They've been here before in that 2022, like you said there, Jeff. Let's talk about, because behind Jordan Washington, my favorite guy is not even in that room yet. And I agree with you. Watching on film, Nick Townsen looks like he could be a game-changing 5-tool tight end. You talking about, Gerry, you put up the video of him running track. I was a 10-6 split in the 4x1 and 21-7 or something like that.
First track meet of the year.
It's great. Yeah, exactly. We're not even peaking yet. That's just early on. This dude is a certified freak. I mean, he really is. I'm excited just kind of thinking about what he could do now. It's early, and he's not an early enrollee, right? So he's not already on campus yet. But, man, he should be able, at least in the passing game, potentially to help you early on, I think.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw this back to you guys after I talk about Nick Townsend in a second. Because I was at his signing ceremony, even though he signed, he kind of went through it with his teammates last week since he wasn't an early enrollee. And he's 6'3.5", he's 228. So he ran a 10-6 split in a 4x1 and a 21-7-5 200 at 228, first track meet of the year. So the Caney staff thinks he's going to get low 21s in the 200. If he gets to that, he may be at the state meet at 225 in the 200. I'm not sure anybody's ever done that before outside of like Nicholas Harbor at South Carolina. Nick Townsend, the much better football player than he is. But I want you guys to speak to what's the curve going to be for him? Since he's not coming in spring football, the position, how difficult is this position for him for a freshman that's not in its spring to pick up? Because I'll tell you what, you look at with the future of this position, like if you start looking at the 26, you say Jordan Washington in year 2, Spencer Shannon with experience, Nick Townsend in year 2, Emory Winston in year 2, and suddenly you're looking around saying, "Wow, this group is uber athletic." They got 2 guys who would be NFL combine stars at the tight end position in Washington and Townsend. But this year, Nick Townsend's learning curve, guys, what's in front of him? He has the physicality, Rod. You've seen the tape. Yep. He's a guy you don't have to worry about, is he going to block somebody? He's going to hit somebody really hard. But how difficult is it going to be for him to pick up this scheme?
Yeah, they move their tight ends around a lot, as you know, Jeff. Their tight ends move around as much as pretty much any tight ends in the Power 5. I mean, they're right there in like the top 10 of their move and their shift rate, if you will, pre-snap motion and shift rate for tight ends. So it's allowing their plate in terms of putting them in the backfield, lining them up at different positions. That could be it. And the technique. Not only he's got the physicality and the mentality, but the technique, hand placement, the footwork, attached to that. I think those are things that could take him a little bit of time. I see his curve being kind of like, we saw an Anthony Hill or Colin Simmons potentially. Maybe by the end of the season, he's a guy that, he's a regular contributor for you by the end of the season, potentially.
Yeah, mixing him in there a little bit. It's interesting, too, when you really look at it. This is the first tight end room exclusively of guys that this staff has recruited.
Good point.
You got to remember, Gunnar Helm, Jatavian Sanders, Juan Davis, they didn't recruit those guys. Those guys were already signed under the previous staff. So I do like from that standpoint, Gerry, you mentioned the athleticism. Now we're getting an idea of the kind of guy Sark wants at tight end. He wants that kind of H-back, sniffer, move guy. And then ideally your inline guy is really more of kind of what we've used that term for a long time, Rod, kind of more of that 5-tool guy who can stretch the field, who can move around, do some different things, but you want him predominantly inline, especially with as much split flow as they use in their run game. The sniffer guys, he's got to be, and I see Nick Townsend being kind of in that role. That's a guy I say that, but it could be a deal. Look, it may just be easier for him right from the jump to be a C-gap and out blocker attached to the line of scrimmage. So, and maybe you want to use Jordan Washington as your move guy. I don't know, but that's the thing that I'm not. It's not a concern, but it's something to monitor. you look at how Jeff Banks has developed these guys, with Jatavian Sanders that first year, basically pulled him off to the side, got his feet wet on special teams. Kind of did the same thing with Jordan Washington last year, no snaps, as a true tight end. Don't really have that luxury this year. So I think Nick Townsend's kind of the first young guy that's really going to get a crash course in, hey, you don't have time to sit and watch. They need that physicality in the run game on the field. I just wonder, is it more conducive for him to be an inline guy as opposed to a move guy, where maybe in 2026 he could be that guy, but right now they might need him more, might be easier for him to adjust to being an inline guy.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. And with the addition of Coach McIndoe, Jason McIndoe from Oklahoma State, who was the guy who, innovated and pioneered their cowboy back, which is a hybrid of an H-back, a tight end, a fullback. You do have some, I think Sark is tinkering with the tight end position. And maybe it's not tinkering. Maybe, Jeff, you just hit the nail on the head. Maybe it's just now we're just starting to see the athletes, they are actually recruiting at tight end as opposed to the guys they inherited at tight end. And I think he wants some guys that are movable chess pieces. And so we can hunt matchups with these tight ends. And not that you couldn't do that with Gunnar Helm or JT Sanders, but I think the athleticism, the athletic profile looks a little bit different with the Jordan Washington, especially a guy like Nick Townsend. So I wonder if they're going to more of those movable chess pieces, guys you can put at H, put at fullback, put them at inline, put them all around, move them all around the formation.
Hey, Rod, to that point, we need to bring up another name because we don't know what's going to happen with Michael Terry.
Bring it up. Yeah, I'm glad you did.
Okay, so Michael Terry is starting his career at wide receiver, but he's starting his career at wide receiver at 6'3", 212, 215 pounds and long frame. He may be another one of those movable chess pieces for Sark because seeing him in person, it's going to be hard for him not to weigh 225, 230, even more. You could get him to 240, 245 in a blink of an eye if you wanted to. I really believe that with his frame. So you have a lot of possibility in this room from a versatility standpoint. You could play Michael Terry at an X outside receiver, but also use him in some of that role as well, especially as a young player. But again, then you're getting into slowing development, I think. But Michael Terry is an interesting part of that. And then you guys have to talk about how's the offense going to change with Arch Manning throwing to these tight ends? Because with Quinn, it was short and intermediate passing game, right? So Sark really schemed everything open. If you have more of a vertical shot quarterback, what is that going to do for the tight ends in the passing game? Are they going to have more favorable matchups and situations for Sark to work those guys into the passing game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Sark offense with a quarterback. And I know Quinn was at Ohio State the first year, but this is a Sark offense with a quarterback you recruited out of high school, that you evaluated, you recruited, with a tight end group that they have recruited and evaluated and developed out of high school. So, I mean, Rod, we've been talking about the schematic evolution, like what's next for Sark. Maybe now we're really going to see it now that he's okay. These are the ingredients that I wanted. We saw what he's done with the guys he inherited, and they did a great job, obviously, with the guys they inherited. But now I think we're going to get an idea, okay, for the foreseeable future, this is what the offense is going to look like. Gerry, I'm with you on Michael Terry, and I know he's going to factor into the receiver reps, but going back to Jason McIndoe, Rod, I keep going back to the two-back personnel they used at Oklahoma State, and that game plan that Mike Gundy and Mike Yursich had in 2018 when Texas went to Stillwater, and they unleashed Taylor Corndog Cornelius in the run game, and then Chuba Hubbard playing fullback. I've been a big fan of that cowboy back and what they do with it at Oklahoma State for a long time. So I do think that's a way to, like I said, I'm fascinated. Hey, if Nick Townsend takes to that kind of role and that's the way to get him on the field, great. If he's an inline blocker and can just mash defensive ends and outside linebackers at the point of attack, that's great too if that gets him on the field. But it's I don't know, Gerry, I don't think I'm speaking hyperbole when I say this. I don't know that there's a position group in the program right now that has more upside than tight end. The floor right now is not as high as some other rooms, but the ceiling is it's up there. It's pretty dang high.
Yeah. No, it'd be interesting to see because usually Sark is between around 35%, maybe between 30 and 35% 12 personnel with two tight ends on the field. And he really does. He likes having two tight ends on the field we know Jordan Washington, I think, no question, is in the driver's seat to be that guy, their number one tight end. By the way, in terms of targets, the number one tight end ever since 2022, like 2021 was that first year, he inherited Cade Brewer and then had Gerry Wiley. Man, it's a lot of targets. You're talking about 60 to 70 targets every time. For JT Sanders, he had 72 and then 67. And then Gunnar Helm had 73. So your main tight end, 72, 67, and 73 targets. It's a lot of targets for a main tight end. So Jordan Washington is that guy. Or if, maybe they'll split some of that up. We'll see. But Jordan Washington, in right now, looks like he's going to have a big year if he's going to be that number one guy in Sark's offense now. All
Gerry, right. Are there any of the true freshman offensive linemen? Because we know there's going to be O-line attrition coming at some point. And unless they're still competing for a spot, I don't know that we're just talking purely hypothetical. Would Malik Ogbo or Jaden Chapman hang around if they're the sixth tight end? I don't know. Are there any of those true freshman O-linemen that you think could fit that sixth O-line role?
No, not in this class. Not really. There's no Malik Ogbo type in this class. These are really big, thick body guys. Nick Brooks is 340-ish. Jackson Christian's probably 330-ish. The Colemans are 345, 350, and 325. So they're more. That guy's not in this class. So that would be interesting to see if Texas did use some of that 6-0 line package. It's not going to come from the freshman class.
He didn't use it at all this year, though, guys.
That's right.
He didn't use it. I mean, they used their jumbo package where they would throw out the jumbo guys. I think he was on that, but the Big 11, Big 12 packages they call it with the 6-0 linemen, I was shocked. We didn't see it at all. So it may be something maybe he's phasing out, or maybe it's got to be, like you said, player specific, personnel specific. I got to have a guy that I like in that situation. But I was surprised. So maybe that's something, like Jeff said, if you don't find this solution for your number two tight end, maybe you lean more on that or some other personnel groupings. But this may have been the least versatile, least diverse Sark has been this past season in personnel groupings. No Wildcat, no Big 11, no Big 12, no 20 personnel. Those are a lot of things that were just kind of taken out of the offense that we've seen from Sark's offense in the last 2 years. Maybe it's because of the lack of personnel. Maybe, Jeff, you had it right that now we got the athletes that we want. Yeah. We don't need a lot of diversity in personnel. We don't need that anymore. But to have the advantage schematically, because we got the guys we want. Be very interesting to see where Sark goes. I am for diversity in personnel grouping, so I love it. I like 11, 12, 10, 20, 21, 31. Throw it all out there for me, man. I like it. Trust me, as a defender, it's hard to defend all that kind of stuff. Let's thank our friends over at Tackle Addict for sponsoring our positional breakdowns here for spring football. Do yourself a favor and check out tackleaddict.com. If you're an avid fisherman who's always searching for the right supplies, trust me, tackleaddict.com can take care of you. Owned and operated by legendary lifetime Longhorn Brian Robertson and also former Longhorn baseball great Brandon Belt. Tackle Addict has everything you need for the best in today's fishing equipment. Tackle Addict is for the everyday fisherman and serious pros alike. Get their products shipped to you directly from the shores of Lake Sam Rayburn. That's Tackle Addict, ADDICT.com, tackleaddict.com. And Brian and Brandon say, hook 'em horns. Thank you very much to our friends, Brian, and also to Brandon for hooking us up with Tackle Addict as a sponsor of tonight's program. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you, Jeff. Thank you, Gerry, always for the expertise and the insight. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, always twisting and tweaking the dials back there. Thank you to our sponsor, tackleaddict.com. And we'll be continuing our position breakdowns next week on the offensive side of the ball. For Gerry and for Jeff and for Matthew, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, hook 'em horns.